Hello ladies and gentlemen, you're watching NDTV. Operation Sindoor is not over. If Pakistan fires, we will fire, and if Pakistan launches an attack, we will attack with equal measure. This is what sources in the government and armed forces have told NDTV, making it clear that while we are in the new normal, the world has to accept this, Pakistan has to accept this, and it cannot be business as usual if Pakistan attempts any misadventure of any kind. This is a new India that will not compromise on terror. It wants peace, but it also wants justice. Now, the understanding that was reached between India and Pakistan on Saturday stays fragile, with India ready to respond to Pakistan with decisive action if it attempts any violation. In fact, what we understand is that this was what Prime Minister Modi also conveyed to US Vice President J.D. Vance. If Pakistan attacks us, we will hit stronger, won't let Pakistan terror harm India. That's what the Prime Minister is believed to have told J.D. Vance. What we also understand is that India has made its position clear on Kashmir. There's only one matter left, the return of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, POK. There's nothing else to talk about. If they talk about handing over terrorists, we can talk. That's what India has said, making it clear that India does not have any intention to discuss any other topic. We don't want anybody to mediate. That's what India has conveyed as well. Now, there were no talks between the national security advisors and foreign ministers of India and Pakistan. There were only talks between Director General of Military Operations, DGMOs of both countries. That's what sources have told NDTV. But remember, the turning point, what we understand, was the attacks on on the air bases of Pakistan. India achieved all three objectives by conducting Operation Sindoor. Basically, the runway in Rahim Yar Khan Air Base in Pakistan was totally flattened. That's what sources have said. This is also the first time Indian armed forces struck deep inside Pakistan in 9 terror bases: Bahawalpur, Muridke, Muzaffarabad, camps of JEM and LAT that have all been perpetrators of terror for so long. Then, of course, comes the political objective, and that, of course, was also launched along with the diplomatic offensive that India has raised against Pakistan, including putting the Indus Water Treaty on abeyance. Clearly, after Operation Sindoor, past assumptions in Pakistan of an Indian response are no longer true. But to talk more about this, we have with us Rajiv Dogra, who is a former diplomat. We have Colonel Rohit Sharma, who is a defense expert. We also have Major General G.G. Dwivedi, who also is a defense expert. Thank you, all of you, for joining me on this broadcast and also waiting so patiently. Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, to you first, sir. There is what sources are telling NDTV is also that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has conveyed very strongly to US VP J.D. Vance that if Pakistan does something, the response will be devastating and strong from India's side. I want you to help us understand the role of US in this, the fact that this was an interaction, talks between the DGMO of both countries, but of course US is also claiming to be the mediator here. What does this mean for India and also for future of India and Pakistan ties?
Thank you, Vasudha. Vasudha, let me clarify that right from the beginning, India has not ever wanted someone to act as a mediator. Yes, good offices, informal telephone calls are okay in a crisis situation, as has happened now, or as had happened in Balakot and some of the other crises, including Kargil, where Nawaz Sharif had to go to Washington to make amends. But the larger point here is the propaganda drive undertaken by Pakistan, where for a time it seemed as if its viewpoint and its presentation of what it was claiming as facts was gaining ground. So people in India, and I think it is equally important for people outside India, because public opinion matters, were wondering why this sudden call for halt of military operations when Prime Minister's speech had laid down specific objectives when in Madhubani. That is point one. So I think what you said right in the beginning of your show about Mr. Modi's conversation with Vice President Vance, where he clarified many other things which you elaborated, is certainly a welcome step for people's information gap. The other thing is, and I want to draw attention to that because I've heard some comments being made there, why has Indus waters from a couple of rivers, including Chenab, been released suddenly this morning. I mean, if the Indus Waters Treaty is under suspension, and if earlier every time the flow was stopped or there was a release, the nation was informed. This time there are pictures without information. So I hope that gap is filled, because in today's world, social media plays a very crucial role.
Right. That's a very important point. Major General Dwivedi, also help us understand, sir. Sources are telling us that there was a clear gap between technical and military prowess capabilities of both Pakistan and India, that the difference between the two countries' capabilities was massive. The fact that we went deep into Pakistan, hitting out at terror bases in Bahawalpur and Muridke in Punjab, which is central to Pakistan's existence, and the fact that we neutralized all of their missile and drone strikes, and the fact that we also, attacked their air bases. There's a certain belief that Pakistan realized that it was not in the same league. Would you agree with that assessment, sir?
Absolutely, Vasudha. There's no, I think, denying or no confirmation required, because in the war there are two sides. One is defensive and one is offensive. So as far as the defensive is concerned, India's defense was very robust, and no major damage could be caused to Indian installation despite Pakistan's repeated offense. So therefore, on the defense side, I think we did show Pakistan that we have a very formidable defense, and we have an upper hand. And more importantly is the offensive. And that's where actually the cutting edge was very distinct, because we were able to hit 11 of the Pakistani airfields and cause very considerable damage. And therefore, I think as far as if you take the audit, that India had very clear edge, both in the technology and also how we operate our weapon system. But point number two, Vasudha, is that we are having a very distinct edge, and accepting ceasefire when you have an edge is one thing which really surprised me. And secondly, the political military intent was to deter Pakistan and stop a proxy war. Now it's a big question how far Pakistan have been deterred, because their doctrine of proxy war, I don't think is going to change in any time future. Their jihadi approach to the complete, the whole question, as their defense minister just said, that our madrasas are humming with the jihadis, and they will be unleashed anytime soon. So therefore, once again, there's need for caution. And third point, Vasudha, as far as the Pakistan past record is concerned, it is very bleak, very poor. In fact, I fought 17 war, and before the ink dried on Shimla Agreement, Pakistan violated.
Right.
And my own experience on LOC is Pakistan violates ceasefire when they want to push in the terrorists, and then they keep quiet. My last word is, Vasudha, never take Pakistan on face value, point number one. Secondly, always keep your guard. And thirdly, they do not respond to measured and, very calibrated responses. Pakistan army needs to be hit hard, because until they're hit hard, I don't think they're going to mend the ways. Well, let's hope for the best this ceasefire line holds on, but I have a very serious doubt whether it would, because Pakistan possibly has taken a little pause they needed to recover. And once they recover, I think they may be...
So taking off from what you say, Colonel Rohit Sharma, then why did India choose to entertain a ceasefire or agree to a ceasefire proposal when, while it was continuing with its offensive operations? How do you look at this?
See, Vasudha, we must understand that whenever we are going for any operations, so we have an engagement strategy, and then we need to have an exit strategy also. So whatever decisive point that was to be conveyed, that whether it was a military objective, whether it was diplomatic objective, or whether it was the political object, that has been achieved in a short run. So the point is that the action that was taken was very decisive throughout the engagement, throughout this targeting of military targets. The government has always maintained a stand that is a de-escalatory, and we are going after their the terrorist infrastructure that is existing there, and they stand exposed actually. And the stand that has been taken by the government, they clearly say that it is a pause. So it is not a permanent agreement which they have got into. So it is how they live up to their commitment, what they have given. And then based on that, India can decide their strategy at tactical level, at operational level, and at strategic level, that how we need to respond to that.
Right.
So that is what my take on the issue would be.
Right. Ambassador Dogra, also help us understand what happens after this diplomatically, because there is a clear indication from our sources that India is done with the charade of exchanging dossiers and, documents with evidence and being just a plaintiff in front of the UN Security Council, asking for action against Pakistan. And the fact that India is also tired of living under the shadow of nuclear blackmail to some extent. Why is there no international reprimand of this bluster around nuclear usage of nuclear weapons that Pakistan keeps making? Do you think that there could be a different perspective in which Pakistan will be looked at even by the international community?
Well, Vasudha, very good point. But the fact is that we are living in a very dissipated world, where United Nations hardly has any authority, because at least for some time it had the moral authority and occasionally even executive authority in enforcing its decisions. Today that is not the case. The only two authorities that are there in the world are now USA with a reduced power and China with the emerging power. China is clearly with Pakistan. USA has its own interests, because if you watch Trump's statements, even the latest one, he's sort of talked of Pakistan and talked of India in the same breath, that, I want to increase trade with them, I want to see them grow up and so on. That's not the language one should speak against a country which indulges in nuclear blackmail day in and day out, whose defense minister says that I'll use nuclear weapons to such an extent that the entire world will be wiped out.
Right.
So the outside world thinks that, it's India's problem, let them handle it the way they want. But they come in when the nuclear trigger is near the threat level, as has happened now. The reports, unverified reports, are that America got involved when it felt that the Pakistani army was...
Okay, Ambassador Dogra, I'm really sorry to interrupt you. The presser by armed forces is going to start in just a bit.